Are you a buyer asking yourself, am I ready to buy a house? Then this video is for you. Today we're going to be talking about some of the factors that can help answer the question, am I ready to buy a house? Because it's not just about numbers, it's not just about math. There are many factors that can go into being ready for this huge step in your life. Hey there, I am Christina Sparks, realtor with Real Broker, owner, House of Sparks. All right, so we're going to go over 3 buckets, if you will, of questions to ask yourself when you're considering to buy a house. So let's get into it. First off are going to be your financial green lights. So before you start scheduling home tours, let's go over a couple of these things to make sure that financially you are ready to take this step into home ownership. Lenders are going to look at a few different things. One of those being your income. Do you have stable, steady income? Lenders typically want to see at least 2 years of consistent employment in the same field. So it's okay if you have changed jobs within that 2 years, but lenders really like to see that those jobs were in the same field or profession. Now, if there's job gaps, be ready to explain those. And the longer those gaps are, the bigger the red flag is for the lender. Next is a healthy-ish credit score. Perfect credit score is 840. Don't have to have perfect credit, but anything below a 650, you might want to check your credit and maybe do a little bit of cleanup. So your credit score is kind of a big factor because it will determine your borrowing power, and it'll also determine the interest rate that you get. So the higher the credit score will translate into a better interest rate and possibly a higher loan value. And lenders will also want to look at your debt to income ratio. So this is pretty self-explanatory. It's your debt versus income. How much are you paying out versus what is coming in? You can watch this video on a more in-depth dive into what debt to income is, how it's calculated. There is even a worksheet in the description box of that video where you can calculate your own DTI to kind of see where you stand. But for most lenders, they want to see that DTI 45% or lower. All right, topic 2, the savings bucket. So we all know how important it is to have money saved, whether that's an emergency fund or whatever. But for a home ownership standpoint, you want to keep these 3 things in mind when it comes to savings. First of all, your down payment. Now, it is not true that you need 20% for a down payment. You can watch this video on some creative loan programs and why you don't need 20% down to buy a home. That's typically what scares a lot of home buyers away, is they think that 20% down is the bare minimum. Just know that there are other loan programs. For example, USDA, here's a video to watch about the loan requirements for that loan, and then FHA. Both of those loan programs are less than 20% down, and of course they will have their own stipulations, but go ahead and watch those videos, learn about the program, and see if it's even right for you. So while you don't need 20% down, it is good to have a savings, to have something to put down. Even if you don't end up needing it, at least you have it. So the next part of the savings bucket is going to be closing costs. So if you don't know this already, closing costs and down payment are 2 very different things. They are not the same sum that you bring to closing. They are very separate entities. So you can watch this video to dive more into it. Basically, closing costs are going to include your lender fees, your title company fees, your deed transfer fees, things like that. It is not going to have anything to do with your down payment. And then the last part of the savings bucket is going to be emergency fund. Now, if you're new to home ownership, it's important to remember that you own the home now. You cannot call the landlord when an appliance breaks, or if there's a plumbing leak, or if a window breaks. All of those repairs are on you now. So it's a good idea to have a separate fund that is just for emergency home repairs. It can come real handy when your water heater goes out on a Tuesday afternoon. All right, the 3rd bucket is the lifestyle check. Now, maybe a lot of people don't think about this when it comes to buying a house, but here are some things to consider. First off, the 5-year rule. So home ownership is a marathon. It is not a sprint. You will not have a bunch of equity in a year or 18 months. It is really a good idea to plan to stay in that home for at least 5 to 7 years, or ultimately selling the home before then will not be really worthwhile. Next thing is maintenance. If you're a procrastinator, if you're not a saver, if you don't have a plan, this is something definitely to consider because, like I said before, you don't have a landlord. This is all on you. So whether that means trips to the hardware store on the weekend, doing home projects, or even mowing the lawn, these are things to think about when it comes to considering the lifestyle change between a renter and a homeowner. And last but not least, are you settled? And what I mean by that is, do you plan to move to a different town, to a different state? Are you comfortable staying where you're at for at least 5 to 7 years? If your life has a cross-country move or a career pivot in the near future, homeownership may be something to put on hold. So all of that to say, if you have some savings, if you are ready to mow the lawn and do home projects on the weekends, and you don't plan on moving for 5 to 7 years, you might be ready for homeownership. Now, if you go to my channel, there is a home buying process playlist that you can watch, and it can kind of guide you through the home buying process, what it all entails, the fees you'll have to pay up front, and things like that. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help any way that I can. I hope you learned something in this video. And if you have any questions on the topics of this video, feel free to comment below. Or call me or text me. I'm happy to help. Have a great day.